Norwegian. Is this good, or should we turn these
I can
lights
turn
off?
off the lights, yes.
The color always shows way better if the lights are off. Better, everybody?
Sure. Yeah.
Good? Okay. So I'm Lani, and this is my son, Don. I still call him Donnie from when he was little. But we started this business when I got out of grad school. We were cattle ranchers. We actually ranched at Lander for 33 years on Twin Creek. And we're ranchers, and my dad died, and Mom gave the ranch to the oldest brother. I got a suitcase, so I went off and managed ranches, drove a truck in the oil field for 2 years. That went out of business because it was put out by a pipeline. That qualified me to go back to school in a retraining program. So I went to college when I was 33 with 2 little boys to raise with no money. And I went to Grand Junction, Colorado. I got a degree in environmental restoration, botany, biology, and I went right to CSU and got a master's degree in weed science. And that's where I read about goats. I'd never seen a goat in my life, but that's where I read about goats. And when I was in grad school, I volunteered to do a sheep project because no one knew how to build fence or keep animals in. Because my research project was at Boyson Reservoir. And the sheep project, 90 miles east, away from Fort Collins, but east of Denver, was sheep grazing for leafy spurge in a riparian area where you couldn't spray. And that had failed miserably year after year because no college kids knew how to handle animals, and they could never make the sheep stay in, so there was no data. And they were going to scrap the project, and I went to my major professor and said, I'd like to take this over because I know how to make the sheep stay in. And he said, oh no, you don't have time. And I said, well, I do if the boys, who were 11 and 12, if they can help me, but if they help me and do the work, then I want them to draw the same pay. He said, oh, you got to go talk to the dean. So I went to the dean. Everybody hated the Coal Creek project. Nobody ever wanted to go out there. And I said, I'd like to take over the Coal Creek project. Now keep in mind, I'm 36 years old and all the other students are 20. And I'm a rancher. So I said, I want to take over the Coal Creek project. And he goes, all right. And I said, I need good help that works to my standards and knows how to build fence. He said, all right. And I said, I can't use anybody in the department. He said, okay. And I said, I'd like to hire my 2 boys. They work to my standards and they know how to build fence. And he goes, okay. I said, if they do the same work that my colleagues would do, then I want them to draw the same pay. And he said, okay. How old are they? I said, 11 and 12. And he fell off his chair and he said, oh no, child labor law. So I did just exactly what you would do. I went right down to the child labor office and I got the law. And I came back and I said, under agriculture breaks out here, basically they can't go to work before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. on a school day, can't go more than 5 hours without eating. They can't be in a pen with a stud horse, a bull, or a boar pig. And they can't have power tools, power machinery, or power equipment. And I said, they're walking, they're carrying fence and pliers, and it's used sheep. And they were hired, each of them were hired
At an adult's rate.
as Colorado State University temporary employees.
Nice.
They got retirement. I did not. Because I was a grad student.
Oh.
I was the only one in the department not funded by a chemical company. So I was the poor kid. Anyway, so then they made $7 an hour and we all got per diem for being 90 miles out of town, and we spent our whole life out there and rebuilt the entire 39 plots. It was 1.5 miles up and down Crow Creek, and we rebuilt the whole thing, put the sheep in, ran it, plus drove to Shoshone and did we took all the data. So at 11 years old, we had a Daubenmeyer frame, and we took data for hours and hours and hours. The students used to have to go out and do it, and they hated that. So then we started doing it, and then we did it all. And they, at 11 and 12, knew the Latin names and the common names and could identify them in all stages of growth. And we did it. We did it all. And I saved their money. and put it in an account, and then that's what bought our first 100 goats, because when I got out of grad school, I had no money, when I went to college. And I was 3 years at Grand Junction and then 2 years at Fort Collins. And I didn't have any money, so I took their money, we bought the 100 head, and I bought a fax machine because I thought if you had a business, you'd have to have a fax machine. And off we went, and we are the ones who never quit. So that was in 1996. And we run in all western states. We don't sell for slaughter, so we have 27 generations of goats that have the knowledge, the experience, the memory. They have the gut memory. We've eaten poisonous plants in all states, everywhere we've ever been. And they remember when they go back to places year after year. They remember, and it makes it easier to do the work when they remember where they are. And they know where the water is, they know where the train tracks are, they know they're not bothered by the homeless people or airplanes or hovering helicopters or anything. So our value is in our animal, not how much it weighs to sell it. It's in the animal and what they know and how they behave. We need them skinny, hungry, and very well behaved, because you could get more on a truck when we move from place to place. Oh, it's me. Okay, yes. Uh-oh. Grab the keyboard. Uh-oh.
Well, it's you.
Oh, down here maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
At the bottom? That one?
Is that your second slide?
Yep.
Okay.
So there we are. And that was in Jackson Hall a lot of years ago, you can tell by, do you know how old you were there? So that's Reggie on that side and Donnie.
Like 25.
And Reggie, I wanted my sons to go off in the world and find their own passion. We started this business and ran together. And then I wanted them to go off and find their own passion and not be saddled to me with debt or having to help me. And they went off. Reggie wanted to stay in Jackson, start a fencing business and get married. Donnie went off and came back in 09. So since 09 now, he and I run it together, and now I'm phasing out and he's becoming bigger. So this is generational. Our goats are generational and our border collies are generational.
Just click the bottom here. The down arrow. Good.
Yeah. So like I said, all western states, and our only income comes from this. And like I said, I never quit. Once I started, I never quit. It had to work. People who start a little business and they tell me, well, I'm gonna keep my other job and just, I'll get 20 head and maybe I'll go every 3 weeks and set some new fence. They don't put their effort into it or their everything into it. I did, and I had no other option. I was gonna make it work. We do weed management, brush control, fire fuel load reduction, which is very big in Colorado now. All of our work that used to be weed control is now about 100% fire mitigation. Erosion mitigation, flood control, oil field reclamation. This is at Wamsutter, Wyoming, working for Chevron. Reseeding, and we work, anybody that hires us, we go. Everything we own has 4 legs or 4 wheels, and we go to where the work is. And that says mutual respect. So we run our business on mutual respect. It's all built on respect and trust between the animals and us, the wildlife and us, the landowner and us all, each other and our dogs. And it's not built on voltage, it's built on respect and trust. Okay? So when I talk about natural succession of plants, that's what we do. We're either pushing succession forward or we're pushing it backwards. To push succession forward, you start at bare ground. First you see the annuals, then biennials, perennials, brush, and trees. If you're going backwards, like fire mitigation, you're starting at trees and brush, and we're pushing that backwards to perennials and grasslands. We could go clear back to bare ground, as you see places that are overgrazed, and cattle, horses, goats, sheep, anybody can push it to bare ground if you stay too long and they can't get away. So the succession of plants, we're either pushing it forward or pushing it backwards. Go ahead. And sometimes we're pushing it the same direction at the same time. Oh, this is bare ground, grass, and this is very simplified, very general, you know. Okay? So going both ways at the same time, this is at Waltman, Wyoming, on a Chevron contract where we were reseeding an abandoned well site. So we were pushing the sagebrush back to bare ground and the bare ground forward to grassland, all in the same set at one time, which is really cool. Go ahead. I love those fields. Chevron sold all their North American fields, and I'm so bummed because I love Waltman and I love Wamsutter. Fire. So that's our big deal in Colorado now, okay? Do you guys know about the Marshall Fire, town of Superior in Colorado, that caught on fire? This is it. We had 400 goats right up the mountain to the left, to the west. The wind was blowing 100 miles an hour this day, and I'm not exaggerating, but it was blowing that way and we were upwind. We had 1,000 goats at Castle Rock and 400 head at Lookout Mountain right above there when this fire started, okay? I indeed wrote a proposal to town of Superior Open Space to do fire mitigation 6 months before that fire, $19,000, and they said, oh, that's way too expensive. And they did not hire me. And anyway, now they're over a couple of $2 billion. People can't rebuild, their insurance is no good, there were lives lost, they can't get permits, it's so toxic, and the cleanup, and on and on and on. Go ahead. But anyway, I really would like to get that to national media that I did that. They turned it down. This is in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It's so dry. The drought is so bad in eastern Colorado. It is so dry, everything is such a fire tinder. This is in a public park in Colorado Springs. That's our electric fence. Go ahead. Before and after Bear Creek Park, that's NORAD, right, Cheyenne Mountain, where all the military base is underground in that mountain. Go ahead. We just finished that job, by the way, last week at that park. We've been there 28 years in a row. And we just finished it last week, and we were curious with what's going on in the world if we need to be getting away from NORAD. But the fire, the big deal is prevention versus after the fire. And so far, everybody is only concerned about the fire and after the fire. And nobody's been thinking about prevention. U.S. Forest Service, BLM, it's all about the fire, spotting the fire, and putting the fire out, not prevention. Go ahead. We were in the Grizzly Creek fire. Did you hear about that one in Glenwood Canyon? And we had BLM contract in 2021. No, I guess it's 2020. First time in history, BLM has contracted directly with goats to do fire prevention. First time in history. So we had BLM 2020, 3 years in a row. This will be our 4th year. Each year we get a little more. We work with a young woman, RangeCon, and she wanted to get 1,000 acres last year, and the older guys in charge there went, I'll give you 300. So we're working up from there, but we had 1,100 head of goats up on top of that mountain, and the firemen, Donnie was up there with them. Why don't you tell that story?
So there's actually 1,150 goats up there, and as the fire approached the top of the ridge, fire doesn't like to burn downhill, and they said it wouldn't come downhill, and then a gust of wind came down and it was coming downhill like 30 miles an hour. So we were evacuated, and I pushed the goats through the brush with the border collies down to a hayfield, and we were there for 3 months waiting because the I-70 shut down, so that our semis couldn't come and get us, no one could come up and get us, and we were stuck there, and it was a liability if I were to push the goats further down through the brush, that an ember would come down and start a fire, and I would be trapped and be their liability for allowing me to leave that site. So anyway, I pushed them down. It was almost dark and got down to that hayfield, and it was pretty intense, being that close to a fire. But these helicopters would come in and they would went to a local ranch, and there was a big pond there, and they would dip those buckets in there and then go put it on the front line of the fire. And it was just like pouring a little thimble of water on this fire coming down. It was pointless. Those helicopters are 36 million a piece, and they're about 10,000 an hour to run with fuel and everything, and it depleted that rancher's pond and that water. So these BLM areas that we work here, with the recent drought in the last, we'll say 10 years, the soil is dry, and then all of the ponds up there that used to be full, and they're running, let's say 500 cows up there, in the last few years they were down to like 40 head of running up there. It's just no water. And so I would haul a 500-gallon water trailer up there, and that would water 1,500 of goats for like a week. So it's, the change of species, the change of plants, and how the drought's impacting this land. It's a great tool. The goat is a great tool to work that land.
When they finally got the fire almost put out, Christy, that's the BLM range con, came to me and said, would you go with those 1,100 goats, would you go to the top right as the flames are out and do soil stabilization with hoof action on top? And I went, oh my God, I don't know how we would feed them, but yes, we'll go. That's what I always say. Gotta figure out later how to do it. Anyway, her bosses in BLM and the Forest Service said, oh no, that costs too much. And the next year, the mudslides filled the canyon, destroyed the Colorado River, ruined all the business for the rafters and the people and the tourists, and I-70 was closed again, and that was billions of dollars of money lost. And so that's 2 in a row in the same year where I was gonna go. I didn't care what it was, we were gonna go. And they declined, said it cost too much, and now they ended up paying billions and billions. But besides Donnie and the helicopters dipping that little water and dumping it, they were also had the airplanes putting the fire retardant everywhere, and that is extremely toxic. And it goes everywhere, not just on the fire, and it goes in the water, in the soil, on the wildlife, it goes everywhere. Okay?
They say when I-70 shut down, it's $1 million every 5 minutes for commerce to be completely shut down.
Oh, so I have a degree in environmental restoration, botany, biology, and a master's in weed science. He has business management and finance and an MBA. And we're partners, we're in different generations. He brings the technology, social media, all that stuff that I just don't do. Yeah. And brings the new life and the continuing on. So we have quite a good partnership. So the goats were on top of the mountain way up there in the cloud, okay? But running down, so Donnie had 1,150 goats, his fiance, the 3 of us worked together, and I were trying to jerk our electric fence and get all of our equipment out of there. And we had a Can-Am, and we were loading that, and he ran down the mountain with the border collie, and the bears and the mountain lions were running with him. They were all going together, running for your life.
Yeah.
It was really cool. But my philosophy is, those are our neighbors. If they need to eat some of mine, it's okay, just please don't eat them all. But I'm getting along with you. And these contracts are telepathic. They're telepathic, but they're so important. My contract with Chevron is 65 pages long, and the mountain lion contracts are trust. And you gotta build that. And you gotta walk your talk, because nothing else counts, okay? So the true cost of prevention versus fighting the fire, the impact is on the people, the wildlife, water quality, mudslides, air quality. In Colorado, the smoke was so thick for 3 years, everywhere in the state. And then last year, I think, was it 600,000 acres burned in northern New Mexico, and all the smoke came up? I don't know where that wildlife went burning 600,000 acres in New Mexico, but they had to go somewhere. And all the smoke and the air quality. And I noticed at the end of year 2 of the fires, I think it was the Grizzly Creek fire year, that the goats were not touching the pine trees. They love pine trees. Absolutely love pine trees. And there was baby pine trees, and they weren't touching them. And that's when I thought, I believe photosynthesis with that smoke changed these plants. Completely changed them, because that's the only thing they had to to photosynthesize with carbon dioxide in the air, and it would get the contaminants. Completely changed probably all the plants. And anyway, that's my theory. Okay.
It's like the grapevines in California that absorbed all the smoke, and the vineyards lost their entire crops absorbing that smoke. But also on this is the soils, they become hydrophobic after those really intense hot fires and will not absorb water, and then you get the massive runoff, so the soil should be up there.
Wow.
So, Colorado budget. At the end of Grizzly Creek fire, the governor of Colorado bought 2 Black Hawk helicopters for $36 million each, transformed them to Firehawk helicopters for about $100 million each. 2022, there was no water in any pond to dip from, and it was too windy to fly the helicopters. The Marshall Fire in City of Superior, they couldn't fly that day. The winds were 100 miles an hour and they couldn't fly. 2023, the federal government has given $192 million to Colorado for prevention. And we are getting benefits of that, of homeowners associations, and I hope BLM, and we've never contracted with Forest Service yet, but I hope we get them, because that money is coming down to actually do prevention and change your thinking of, we have to take care of this land before it burns up, not after, okay? So there we are, we're up high on that BLM contract. That's Katie, Donnie's fiance. And of course, the left to the right. It is not easy putting electric fence through brush on top of a mountain. And there's no access, and we are really strong. Helps to be tall, but that is not easy. And what do you want to say about this?
Well, the mechanical fire prevention that they've done with crews, we have some contracts near Castle Rock, Colorado, and the fire chiefs came out and said that what the goats can do, they also open it up so that the mechanical guys can get in there and see what they're cutting for safety also. But he said that if a fire approached those homes, they would have about 15 minutes to get there and put that fire out before it was licking the roofs. And after we came through, he estimated they would have about 2.5 hours to 3 hours of slowing that fire down. So we do 100 to 200 foot swaths around those HOAs. And so the value and the time, and we're about 1/3 of the cost of what it would take to get a crew of men in there, people in there to manage that.
And the goats are doing 24 things at the same time. They're eating the problem, recycling it through their gut, putting it down as fertilizer, which these soils, we're in the top of the Rocky Mountains. You know, there's really no soil yet. We're trying to build soil. The fertilizer, the urine, so we're fertilizing, irrigating. 1,100 goats is 4,400 hooves. Packing that, the border collies, we can move them any direction we want to, any speed we want to. We can do all kinds of tillage action with the hooves when they hit, and then we turn hard to have a border collie turn hard, you know, where you have all this kind of tillage action that we can do on purpose that has nothing to do with eating. That's how they move. And where they bed down, we can seed a bare spot and bed down 44 hooves and 1,100 goats. Their average body temperature is 102 degrees. Bed them down, that's 120,000 pounds, 60 tons, 102 degrees, we can germinate. Put seed out and germinate, and it's fertilized and irrigated and ready to go. We can do anything with a herd of goats. So another thing I want to point out is when I talk about succession, we can push succession backwards. Here's a great example of brush and trees, and we're pushing it backwards to open grassland. When we're done working an area, let's say 3 years in a row, it becomes a beautiful savanna. So this heavy oak brush, prune it back to a single stem tree. When you're a little kid, you drew a tree like this. So you get the trees like that, and then open grassland, and everything's healthier. That's what I tell the mountain lions. We're bringing nutrition and life and energy here. It's going to be better, but please stand back and watch and give me 7 days after we leave before you make judgment. Go ahead. Oh.
And a lot of this BLM work is on range leases, right? And so they were very skeptical ranchers of like, the goats are going to be eating our food. And then they saw our first year's work, and we opened up the canopy, and more moisture, more sunlight could get in there, and it exposed, made like grass meadows underneath all this brush. And then the ranchers were like, go for it. And they were then our allies to bring us back the next year and get further contracts.
And the BLM so the goats stand on their hind legs, and that is the fire fuel ladder. They're taking out the fire fuel ladder and then recycling it all right in place. Now, when we gave a talk to the fire chiefs in Colorado, I said, how many men are usually on a fire crew? And he said 50. I said, how much water do you have to take up there for the firemen on a job per day? It's way more than what those goats need. And they have to have clean water.
And that's another thing, is we're not taking the ranchers' water up there in those ponds. We can haul our own up in a little trailer and supply our own, so.
And Katie is from Durango, and she has a degree in hospitality management and was managing restaurants. And started dating Donnie and had to come. Anybody that wants to be with us has to come and work. We can't leave. Now she's one of our best managers we've ever had. And that's just more of it. There's Tucker, one of our dogs, but pushing succession backwards, opening that up. And oak brush, scrub oak, is also allelopathic. So when the leaves fall on the ground, and you've seen how deep the leaves are under oak brush trees, that's allelopathic. So the rain and the snow come during the year, and it leaches out a chemical, and nothing else can germinate. That's why you get these huge patches. Russian knapweed is the same. The knapweeds are the same. Sunflowers are the same. And oak brush is the same. So the hoof action of the goats, you have to break that up. So the hoof action of 4,400 goats and the poop and the pee break all that up. So you have all these things happening at the same time. So they're recycling, they're pooping, they're peeing, they're breaking the brush down. If you crowd them with dogs and push them through, you know, they're breaking everything down and opening it up. A cow could not walk in here and get the grass under that tree, but she can over there after we go through it. The firemen would have to come in here and get through all that brush, and here they can walk right up with the chainsaw and cut that down. Okay?
I say, without any scientific backing, that we could double or triple carrying capacity on a brushy ranch in 3 years. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think we might be able to get
It is now.
Do the
It's
math
on
on
the internet.
that, and now you got a whole new market.
Yep.
That's another shot. Okay? Balancing art and science. Science, we take soil samples everywhere we go. We usually reseed every job because we want to know, what is your goal? I don't really care about what your problem is. What's your goal? What do you want here? Soil samples, the rainfall, precipitation, everything. The art is handling the animals and getting them to do what you want. And it's not just our animals. We got goats and dogs. It's all the wildlife, wherever we are. And it's all the people's dogs off leash.
Yeah.
It's all the eagles. It's all the rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
Everything. You gotta manage them all. And that is art. Okay?
And art's on the business side too, of managing the people and the contracts and the municipalities, the HOA boards, you know, those meetings and stuff. It's an art in business as well, not just on the land.
I'm pretty blunt. I'm not allowed to speak to some of those.
Let the hospitality lady do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the dogs are the key to our whole operation. And we have generational dogs. So right now, this is the famous blue-eyed zippy dog. He's very famous. His grandson now is working, and his daughter, both on our team now. Tucker's still there. We get blamed for everything. This was working for Chevron in DeBeck Canyon in Colorado, and we had to wear full PPE, hard hats, safety glasses, fire retardant, all the clothing, fire retardant gloves, and steel-toed shoes. Anyway, we got blamed for everything, so I put that on my hard hat, okay? See what I mean by that? Don't poke them in the eye with a sharp stick. So production agriculture, cattle, sheep, goat people that are selling meat, their production, all their costs go into the production, and the value is how much does that animal weigh, because that's what you sell at the end of the year. And you can't lose them, they can't die. So they operate different than we do. So our value is in our animals, and I don't care, he can probably speak for himself. if they have to eat some of ours to feed their families, that's okay with me. So it doesn't matter if we lose 5 or 10 up on that mountain. It doesn't matter. It will not make one bit of difference of how much money we make that year. And I just said artificial intelligence versus true intelligence because I thought it was funny. Did you want to say anything about that?
Well, as far as losing animals to predators and stuff, or neighbors, the wildlife they're really acting different like they never have before, especially in those urban areas. So we'll have mountain lion kills, like I'll see a mountain lion at 11 a.m. last year, looked at me, she jumped the fence, killed one of our goats and just sat there and ate it in front of me at 11 a.m. Broad daylight.
In the middle of Denver.
And they're not scared of anything. The coyotes down there, they're not scared of anything. They don't get shot at.
And the coyotes have
fearless.
crossbred with big dogs. They're huge,
Oh my.
and they're not afraid of anything. And they act weird. I went, yeah, get out of here, and he humped up his back and hissed at me.
Oh.
Great
So-
big coyote.
So how we used to manage with wildlife and stuff it no longer works. You're managing a different beast now, and I think it's development and drought and
Desperation on the
desperation.
animals.
And now wildlife's getting pinched by the developers. And those developers are setting up those subdivisions in the most insane way for fire trap and wildlife problems. They need to be spanked. Taxed. And taxed.
So you guys don't run any guard dogs or any of that?
No, we have.
Yeah.
And we would disagree on that because we had Sally, I bought her in Oklahoma, and she was really wild, and Anatolian, Akbash. Reba was the Anatolian, she was too tame. Sally was really wild, and I loved her. But I was north of Colorado Springs, and a man was walking his dog at 6 in the morning and was teasing her, and she bit the next person coming by, which was a very wealthy woman in black spandex. And that woman came to my camper door at 6 a.m. and said, I'm a dog lover and I want to tell you this dog just bit me. I'm not going to do anything, but I want you to know. After that, Sally, and she knew the difference, would go after wealthy women in black spandex. I mean, hunt them down. And I just thought that was hilarious.
Insurance policies in my name, so.
She knew the difference. Okay.
So we don't run any guard dogs anymore
Okay.
because we're working too.
We've
many
had
Yeah,
urban-
you got
donkeys.
too many urban.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have donkeys and they're a pain in the ass because he would belong. He would run and hide behind a tree and then run to the alfalfa field as soon as we got past. So we'd spend half a day looking for him. The llamas, they never really worked. And they'd have to eat good food. You know, they can't eat what goats eat. And was it a llama? That one llama? Oh man, he scared me to death. He'd lay his ears back. I rope him. I'd hula him. Rope him. I was always scared of him. He was mean. Anyway, so we've had them all. But what works the best, in my opinion, is electric fence. We set it very, very well. You set your fence perfect. We set perfect fence. And we move all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
They can never quite figure us out, and then we're gone.
How often do you hear about?
Sometimes 3, 4, 6 times a day. Or it depends on the job.
Sure.
Then sometimes we only herd with border collies. We don't even set fence. That's, of course, to me, the most fun. So this is in Debec Canyon, Colorado, and we had 150,000 pounds, 1,500 goats, 150,000 pounds, that's 6,000 hooves working that canyon. The front, these are all big wethers. Our herd is wethers and females of all ages. So we have all kinds of families in here. And they'll bed down at night. Families will kind of lay down together. And this, well, the 6,000 hooves and this kind of weight to do a job when you have your intention of what you're trying to do to change the landscape is very, very effective. And so like I said, they're doing 24 things at the same time. They're eating, recycling, pooping, fertilizing, peeing, irrigating, the hoof action, they're mulching, trampling, preparing the seed bed, aerating the soil. The goats have narrow triangular mouths and they chew, nibble really fast, have a lateral movement to the jaw, and it crushes all the seeds so we can eat the seed set like a Russian knapweed, spotted knapweed, destroys the seed set. before they do anything else, breaks up that allelopathy in the soil. We're doing 24 things at the same time. I'll have to get my list out to tell you the rest of them. This was at Durango, Colorado, where the Utes donated land to build a new hospital. And Chevron gave us those 60 acres and the machinery, that's 60 acres. And I asked that guy, how much does that big machine in the middle weigh? And he said about 80,000 pounds. So our herd was bigger than that machine and self-propelled. Did I say self-propelled on my list? Okay. So when you're taking care of land, you have to feed the system. I don't believe in trying to kill everything. You have to feed the system. It's alive. The soil microbes are alive. Everything is alive. So we take a living tool in there, and we're trying to push succession forward usually. And you got to build nutrition at all levels, and those plants have to have vigor and be full of nutrition. And we got to have diversity, which means stability. And everything's alive, okay? This is our oil field at Waltman. Chevron Reclamation started this site in '08, okay? There's nothing there but tumbleweeds,
Waltman's-
Russian thistle.
Waltman's west of Casper, like just
What'd I
in
say?
case anyone
Oh.
was wondering, west of Casper, Wyoming.
You guys probably all know where
I
Waltman
was
is.
guessing, but I
Yeah.
don't know. Just-
And that's looking down off the top of the tower. The BLM put these 2 steel posts out so they could take vegetation transects. I took pictures and they took vegetation transect. Go ahead. They give us the seed mix, and this is what we seeded there. I would have put in a legume in there to be fixing nitrogen in the soil, and they didn't, but I also love yellow blossom sweet clover as a biannual legume to start fixing nitrogen in very poor soils, but it's not a native plant, so BLM wouldn't use it. And like I said, we reseed about everywhere we go. We take soil samples so we can choose our seed better. Go ahead. Before and after, all they had to eat there was Russian thistle, tumbleweeds, in year 1. I learned on this job, when the soil is the very worst, halogeton grows. It's the only thing that grows, and that's poisonous to sheep. Like 2 bites will kill a sheep. Halogeton, and then when it gets a little better, you see Russian thistle, which is tumbleweed. When it gets a little better, I start seeing kochia. These are all annual weeds. When it gets a little better, I start seeing lamb's quarters, and when I see lamb's quarters, I know the next year's grass. So I learned that on doing oil field reclamation. I'd see that progression every time as the soil got a little better. So this is 2009. This is a year later. Go ahead. 9. After we grazed in '09, okay? Beginning of '10, it was April, the snow had just started to melt. I went up there, okay? Those are the Bighorn Mountains back there. July of '10, so this is year 3. That's grass, okay? And I called Chevron. Well, I started taking soil samples because when we worked for Chevron, I thought, how am I gonna tell the accountants and the lawyers in Houston that we're doing good work in Wyoming? They can't see anything, so that's when I started taking soils tests, so I would have a list of numbers and something to show them. So I called Houston and I said, send the combines, we're ready to start combining our native grasses. That's Kit, one of our border collies. Go ahead. Now, the cattle on the BLM, they would follow us. Everywhere we went, the cattle were right behind us eating all our grass. Go ahead. Oh boy, herbicides, spraying. This is Mullen. This is above Colorado Springs, straight up by Garden of the Gods. And they sprayed this, spent a lot of money, and then they called us and said, well, it didn't work. You can see where it did a little bit, but those seeds are still there. And it's a biannual. To me, that's not a problem, but the people wanted it gone, okay? So then we came in and ate all the seeds, because it has to come from seed. go ahead. And the goats, you guys know mullein, common mullein? It's the real fuzzy leaf. They don't like the leaves, but they'll eat every seed off from that. Just flicker and a whistle, okay?
But you said it had been sprayed. So
Those
they ate-
seeds, the seeds back there had been.
And then the goats could still eat it and be okay then?
This is a reseeding project we did at Lander. This was a 100-year-old roadbed coming in off from the county road. And they wanted to build a lodge, and this would be the lawn. And this was a 100-year-old roadbed. I said I was gonna do it with goats, and I called the seed company who I like to work with, and he said, you have to plow that up. You will have to get a tractor and dig that up. There's no way you can do that without doing that. So I did it my way. Go ahead. Remember, that was the worst drought in history, 2001, the first one? And I could only find 7 bales of oat straw because we seeded it, and then I spread some straw for mulch. So Donnie ran the goats up the mountain to eat and fill their bellies, and then brought that down for mulch and packing that in 2001, okay? So after we got done, looking down towards the barn, okay? 04 was weedy. They ran a hot wire and put horses in there, okay?
This is out of Twin Creek, huh?
Uh-huh, yep.
Wow.
07. So my goal always is to get 1 million pounds per acre of animals. And here I had 1,600 goats on 1/6 of an acre. So this was very close to 1 million pounds of animals per acre, and that was moved about every 2 hours. Okay, that was 07. No irrigation, no spraying, no irrigation over this time. And this is 07, go ahead. And this is 08, May of 08. That's that same thing. The old roadbed was right here to the left and turned. Okay? If you turn the camera straight down, that's what it looked like. No plowing, no spraying, no irrigation. Okay? The key, the poop, the urine, and the hoof action. Go ahead. Just side by side. XL Energy, Denver, Colorado. They, I had 500 goats there the first year we did that, and a train came in with 120 cars of coal every single day. So I had to go around the train track, and there was all kinds of stuff you had to manage around. And you did that job too, didn't you, over the years? Okay. And we were out by the front gate, couldn't set any fence. The scales were right here. I used to drive and weigh my pickup and camper all the time to see how much they weighed. So that's Zippy, and holding them there on that. And my boss came out from the office and said, will you go over to Interstate 25 underneath and graze around our water holding ponds? And I said, sure. And he said, how are you going to get there? And I said, well, I'm going to run them with a dog. And he said, well, we're all taking bets in the office that you'll be in jail by 5 o'clock. So I called the cops and I told them I was going. So it would be on dispatch that I'd called first and told them, go ahead. And orange flag and a good border collie and 500 goats. They sent a cop car and flagged us through that stop line. And away we went, right where we were going. Okay. A good dog. Everybody needs a good dog and an orange flag. So this is kidding on a Chevron contract at Wamsutter in the Red Desert. And oh man, I love those fields there. Go ahead. All kinds of interesting things there. They brought us they bring us a semi load of water and then just move it around and go play on the truck. Okay. They go up there, they'd play it, they'd race up and down and play on those steps. And that's the only shade.
It's like a goat paradise.
So back up, Donnie. Oh, back up. So on that job, that first picture, there was no shade. So we were kidding out there and there was no shade at all. And now babies started dying. And I could not figure out what was killing those babies, because can anybody guess what the predator was there?
Eagles. Eagles.
Nope, nope,
Sunshine.
nope. Well,
Not
they were
the
seeking
snakes.
shade, yeah.
Not the snakes.
Nope, no snakes, there's no snakes there.
Just
Mosquitoes?
It's too high. Nope. To get shade, they went into the badger holes.
Oh.
And H2S gas rolled down the hill into the low spots
Oh.
and was killing them.
Oh, man.
Isn't that interesting?
How'd you find that out?
I picked up a baby one day and I was exasperated. I couldn't figure it out, and I picked him up and I smelled his mouth to see if he'd been eating something, and for some weird reason, I turned around and smelled his butt, and it was a H2S gas. And I went, oh my God. Because when we worked for Marathon at Cody, we had to wear the monitors and carry gas masks when I worked in the Marathon oil field, and it's dangerous. And you don't have any time you can't see the cloud. And anyway, H2S gas. But I have had eagles. We were at Du Bois along the Little Wind River, and I thought the coyotes were getting in, and I'm going around looking for holes in the fence, and the eagles were picking them off on the edge of the river.
Did you make like a mobile shelter to go out there? No.
Nope. I love golden eagles.
No, I meant just for shade.
Oh, in the oil field?
Yeah.
No, sagebrush.
Oh, yeah.
Sagebrush was it. Okay. Now, this is in Texas, eating cotton. They combined this cotton field, and I wanted to see if they would eat those bolls because the seeds were in there. When I was a kid, we bought cottonseed cake for our cows, which is excellent, excellent feed. And they did. They ate those. Now, what's interesting is, this was actually in January, but we run cashmere goats. You know how stiff a cotton stem is? I mean, it's like wire. It is so stiff. So they were walking through here, eating the cotton, and the stiff stems were pulling the cashmere off them. So I said that cotton, I don't know how cheap it was then, but the cashmere is $20 an ounce that we left on the stems.
No kidding.
Anyway, go ahead. Oh, the wind blew 100 miles an hour there too. Okay, Donnie, here you go. People ask how we move. Go ahead and stand up.
Yeah, people always wonder, how we transport, and it's pretty simple. You gotta keep everything lightweight, and everything has to go with you. So we have the cattle panels on the side of the horse trailers. I built a double deck ramped trailer, some of our stock trailers, and then the truckers that we hire will bring these sheep chutes in. But we'll set up these temporary panels. We have to dry lot for about 10 to 14 hours, depending on how far you're going. Dry lot the animals so it flushes their system. They're clean, and the trucks stay clean, and they'll get wet, so they'll slip and fall while you're hauling them. And they're light. Trucks are a lot lighter. And so anyway, it's pretty simple setup. We use those panels to night lock them up before the next day of haul, load them up, and in 15 minutes we load all the panels and hook up, and you're out of there.
That's a 4-deck sheep truck. That when we go to California, they can't carry a sheep chute on the side because it's 3 inches over width, and they can't go into California. But to dry lot them, and we'll even dry lot them 18 hours, but goats hold water in their system. They're like camels. They require very little water, and then they hold the water. They're very efficient in the small intestine. So you've got to hold them for like 18 hours to really dry them out before you go. But when you get there, it doesn't hurt a goat. You can't do that to a dog or a person, but it doesn't hurt a goat one bit. They're fine. And they get there, they're clean, they're dry, and they jump off and they're hungry and they go right to work. And sometimes they haven't had a drink for 3 or 4 days, and we jump them off and go to work, and they won't go get a drink. I've learned all these things over the years. They're not thirsty. But they're being clean and dry on that truck is a big deal, especially with 4 decks when it's coming down.
Do you have one centralized location for the goats, or do you strategically place them where you do most of your work?
We work in 15 western states plus Maui.
Mhm.
Only I had to lease goats over there. It didn't take hours. And when people say, where do you live? I say, under my hat. We're on contract.
Sure.
I'll get to this job here, but in 2012, we were paid every single day of the year. And I think we're the only ones in the world who's done that with the grazing service. I'll bet. I don't know that, but 2012 was the first year we did it, and we've done it consistently since then. another thing, Donnie, that chute, the load and chute you designed and built that we carry.
I built an 8-foot aluminum chute that replaces that long rickety one of the wooden, because it's as wide as the semi door, so we can go 5 wide, so I can load a semi in 10 minutes rather than 2 hours. And then it folds up and it'll fit in the back of a pickup.
Wow.
But we go where the work is, to answer that question again, we go where the work is, and when it's really wet, they usually have weeds, and when that dries out, they have fire problems. In California, they have fire, and then they'll get a lot of moisture, and then the different weeds come in, so we just wait for the phone calls, and we used to go wherever they would call, we would go, and now we've kind of, especially with fuel prices, like when diesel hit $5.50 a gallon, we started staying in Colorado, Wyoming region instead of traveling too far.
And this is just west of Cody, Wyoming. So I said, we'll go like hell, but if diesel goes to $10 a gallon, we'll start knitting.
Yeah, no kidding.
So you run all cashmere?
Mhm.
Okay.
This is over the years, and I've had boar crosses
Mhm.
and some other crosses over the years, but boars do not respect the electric fence. And if it has a brown head or a black head, it's trouble, and I'd get rid of them. Jackson Hole. Donnie's job.
I don't know if anyone's familiar with the golf course right below the village, but this is it.
We'll back up and tell the story.
Well, I can't remember what year this was, but they had troubles with getting the summer labor workers in. And so they decided to manage all the native areas with our services and the goats. So we brought them in, and it was just so important that the goats stayed off of course, the fairways and tee boxes. I mean, this is a world-renowned golf course that's, only the elite get to play, and made sure we stayed off the greens. That was the biggest thing. If the goats ran across the greens and ruined those, it would be, the end of us. So anyway, I had them set in between the tee boxes and the fairway along the river there, and the director that hired us came out, and there was a couple CEOs and stuff playing the course there, and they said, well, you have no fencing along the river. I said, goats hate water. They won't even walk across a half-inch puddle. They absolutely hate water. And so I don't need to fence that. It's a natural barrier. And we were standing there visiting, and those goats started swimming across, swimming across the river, and they went out on the 12th green. And
Oh, no.
they called in 100 guys to come sweep that and try to repair that before the CEOs got around to play the next thing. But I've never seen anything like it, and still haven't. But I mean, I can't even force with the border collies them to walk across, a little puddle, and they started swimming across the river. They weren't out of feed. There was no reason for them to do that.
Goats.
Children.
They heard you say
Children.
that. They're like, oh, you want to
Yeah.
bet?
Mischievous. Oops.
Well, this is my little cartoon I made years ago, doing the 24 things at the same time. They're self-propelled, and I bought pack saddles, and they can even carry the own seed. They can carry your water. They can carry the fireman's equipment. They can carry everything. I was always afraid to use the pack saddle for seed because it's so expensive. So I've never used it for that. But Donnie and Reggie in high school in Jackson Hole hauled beer in it on a high school party.
They didn't make it very far.
Okay.
Did
Yeah.
you make your own, or did you buy
Beer?
these? Yeah.
Our
No,
own-
not beer, the packs, the saddles.
No, I bought the pack saddles. Okay. Their little blankets are so cute. And we can go where no machinery can go, or people. Go ahead. Now, when we're doing fire mitigation, we not only do the fire fuel ladder, we can even go above 9 feet in the air. Only a goat. Somebody's car hauled it?
It's a Ford pickup. Does anyone have a silver Ford by chance? The Grove Yard?
Yeah.
Is that
Wait.
yours?
Yeah,
How
that's
far
my
over
truck.
here?
Oh, no. That one's not mine.
It's funny because my husband's always sitting on camera.
He's in your pocket, I've done that before. So anyway, this is in California. I spent 2 months in California a year and a half ago grazing coyote brush and poison oak. And poison oak is a whole different beast than scrub oak, I'll tell you. This was right just south of Half Moon Bay, about a mile from the Pacific Ocean. I was so cold. It was in April and May, and I wore my winter garb every day. I was so cold. That fog, and it was just freezing. I said, it's raining. They said, this is not rain. This is fog. I said, this is rain. This is rain. They said, no, it's fog. But anyway, standing on their hind legs and reaching up, clearing it, and recycling it. Go ahead. And we kid on the job, and these babies know the electric fence. They get worked with the dog. They start eating with their mothers in an hour old, you know, and they're fully trained when they grow up in it, and they don't know anything else. But so our goats, you know, the 27 generations, they usually know when we're done with the job and we're ready to go. When I left California, I held 1,000 goats in a couple of rolls of our electric fence, and I held them there 18 hours before I loaded trucks to come out of California and held them. They knew we were leaving. So, you know, just the knowledge and the experience they carry is so valuable, okay? Sometimes it's a problem of the mamas stashing babies, and then when we're moving fast, you have to be really careful. We really, you know, have to know where we're gonna be 5 months out before we breed, and we do that very carefully of where we're gonna be, and we gotta be able to sit still and not move so fast with babies, okay? But what's good for those babies is good for all the babies. And when we're at the oil field for Chevron at Waltman, the sage-grouse babies were on our revegetated lands. They were counting them, keeping track of them. Go ahead. You bring that nutrition and life to the system. I just put this in again to remind you, okay? Feed the system, all the nutrients, okay? Now, those are kochia, that's a weed. So a lot of people I know would spray to kill them. And then you got bare ground. Go ahead. Nothing grows on bare ground. And the evaporation off bare ground is so hot. This is at Wamsutter, and this was a right-of-way of a road, and oh my God, this is all halogen. It was so hard because the electric fence, we had over 1,000 goats there, and we had to set fence so fast because they were, you know, they were eating so fast. Go ahead. And we had 1 million pounds per acre here. You can see I-80 way off in the background, okay? 1 year later, grass. The banker, the president of the bank came out from Rock Springs, the Chevron guys flew in, we had a big party because 60 years they've been trying to revegetate this with spraying and seeding and never got anything. Go ahead. This was what surprised me the most of all of goats. Remember, I grew up with cattle. Cholla cactus, New Mexico. Go ahead. Eat it to the core. Go ahead. And of course, you know, it's natural diet preference. So goats are completely opposite to cattle and horses. They're grazers, goats are browsers. Sheep are right in the middle, but goats are the extreme. So we take that extreme behavior and diet. They stand on their hind legs, they eat everything poisonous. Sheep can't do that. And we push it with using an electric fence to make them eat whatever the contract is. And they know it, they know their job, okay? This is that place in California. You can see the job was to clear this brush to make a fire break around these headquarters. And so you can see where my electric fence was set on that corner of the hillside. Go ahead. We gotta go faster. Poison hemlock was 10 foot tall there. Goats have an enzyme in their saliva that neutralizes poison hemlock before they even swallow. And I learned this, but our goats have grazed a lot of poison hemlock. And I get calls from all over the world because I'm really the only one that's ever done it. They say, is this possible? I hear it is. Poison hemlock, 10 foot tall, next morning, gone. Next. Still in California. there was a hill with a whole bunch of weeds, and I put the goats over there to clean it out. It was huge rolls of wire.
Oh.
And the goats stand on top of that and clean it out, but no other animal can do that. Go ahead. Without getting hurt, you know, your best horse would
Yeah.
cut a leg off. So this is California, that ranch, 1,000 head, that's Tucker. The ticks were so bad, we'd pull 25 ticks off him every day. Oh, I hated it there. I could hardly wait to get back to Wyoming. But, so I used them to push through here, and I made roads for them for their four-wheelers and their electric fence and stuff by using the herd as a road breaker, as a road maker. Go ahead. Go ahead, Donnie, that's you. Donnie and Zippy.
This is pushing about 1,200 head across the bridge on F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne.
Oh, boy.
And, yeah, so we were hired to manage leafy spurge, I believe, along the creeks here. But it's a good picture, you know, growing up as ranchers. And a lot of times on ranches, you'll see 30 cowboys all, you know, horseback and everything, move 20 head of cows. So you can run 1,200 head of goats here with one good border collie pretty easily, just walking behind them.
Also, I can see that the goats have purpose. They know their job. You know, they're going to work. There's 2 more slides here on the base. Go ahead. It was really a tricky situation in one spot because there was a noxious weed, Dalmatian toadflax. Endangered species was, which one was that? And the poisonous plant here, the iris, all in the same spot. So this is all about timing. We run in the Rocky Mountains, and it's 4 seasons. And all 4 seasons are very different on how the plants grow and what they do next and what the animals eat and when and how the wildlife behaves. It's all different, the 4 seasons. So when somebody calls me to get a bid for a job, you know, I will know which season we need to be there. And our very best work is done in the winter. And we need to ask Caitlin this. I'm sorry she's not in here. Because I learned, and I always say, that the soil microbes are most active in the winter. And that's when we do the most change fastest is in the winter, because that's when we can change the soil the most. If you want to change plants, you know, you have to change the soil and change the conditions. Anyway, we had to move through here. We had to cover like 28 acres in 10 days. It was fast moving, but we did it, okay? And this is where I learned that what scares goats most is a hovering helicopter. It's worse than anything. You gonna tell your story?
Yeah, so the general of the base asked me to go look at a draw, leafy spurge in a draw that wasn't on our grazing map, and I went over there and was taking some pictures of the draw, and leave it at that for now. And 2 Humvees came across the hill, and soldiers jumped out with AK-47s and told me to get on the ground, and I thought they were doing like a training mission, but anyway, apparently there's some stored stuff back there that where I was
Nukes,
taking
the
pictures.
nukes.
So they wiped my phone clean and made me fill out a bunch of forms and kicked me off the base and took my badges, and it was pretty wild. I was on the ground for about 6 hours, 95 degrees, and finally convinced them to let my border collies out
With
of
a
the
machine
kennels.
gun in his head.
They would rotate
Really?
soldiers, like having me on the ground. It was wild. So be careful taking pictures when
I was taking
you're
pictures
working
of
on
my
a base.
goats, calm down.
I was in the oil field at Wamsutter. They jerked his badge and threw him off. We were the only 2 that had clearance. So I had to come in from the oil field to take
the
over
goats, yeah.
in 1 minute, get back in.
But anyway, when you work in so many different, you know, locations, and out in California, you know, like, do not let the goats go down to the borrow ditches, because that's where the, you know, a lot of the marijuana's grown and stuff with the cartels. So you just learn, I mean, over 30 years, you learned everything about working in different situations. And Cheyenne's has a horrible, like, homeless problem. So when we graze on the creeks under the bridges and stuff, you gotta be really careful, and it's not just like on your ranch behind your fence lines where you're comfortable.
And every client's different too. The federal government is different than other people, but the federal military base is a whole different culture and a whole different set of rules than the BLM and Forest Service. It's all different. And then homeowners associations and the politics of the people and the neighbors, and anyway, those are our heroes. Go ahead, Patch. So this is in California back in the year 2008. I spent the winter out there, 2,200 goats. And they wanted to set up a show of goats versus the D9 cat. And this is fire mitigation out here. And they said, they said we're gonna send some cons out to cut your path of exactly 1 acre so we could do the show when the people came for the show day. And I thought they meant range cons. Go ahead. Convicts.
Oh,
You go,
nice.
whoa, we got 40 convicts here with chainsaws.
Yeah.
But anyway, but look at them going up the hill. And that was so steep, you couldn't stand up. You had to hang on to a brush to be able to stand up there with the chainsaw. But and that was that year, but when I was in California, just year before last, they also brought the convicts to cut and do fire prescribed burning on that ranch that I was working on. And they were going through gallons of hand sanitizer. And gallons and gallons. Well, anyway, indeed, they learned that the convicts were mixing it and drinking it and getting high.
That's right. That's what they do.
Oh, God, that was funny. Okay. So we had our day. See that cat over there? Caterpillar. And so what they did is there was a chain like this big around. I've never seen a chain that big. Chained to a golf ball the size of this room. It was silver, and they filled it with water. And then the cat went straight up the mountain to the top, and that thing would go whoosh, 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 and smash the brush and everything. So they wanted to run the goat grazing versus that. And it was Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo set up that to make the show. So the convicts cut my paths up there. It was exactly 1 acre. And I shoved the goats in there the night before. Go ahead. Next morning, moved them over to the next set and then to the next set, well, so people could watch. So each of these is about 4 hours. Okay? Then we went to Nebraska. This is 2012, the first year that we were paid every day of the year. And this was in Nebraska. It was south of Lexington, and it was 30 below zero. And it was eastern red cedar tree was what they wanted gone, okay, in their pasture. And they had cattle, and they grew a lot of corn and soybeans, but cattle like walking single file, just because, no good reason. And this is in a cornfield, it's all open, and they're just walking single file, just like they always do, which makes trails, which makes erosion. Go ahead. So every one of these erosion arroyos that got worse and worse and worse was started by a cow trail, and then the water running down that, and the cows walk single file. So here we had 1,200, 1,500 goats, and with the border collies, we make them walk, that 100,000 pounds perpendicular to those trails, as we do when we're doing erosion mitigation. Go ahead. And there was just serious cow trail and then runoff. I did tell this landowner, I said, we're going to capture about 5 acres of your neighbor's acreage here. With our hoof action and poop and pee, we're gonna take about 5 acres that he's gonna lose and no one will even know, okay? But these huge arroyos, and then the eastern red cedar came in and populated those arroyos. Go ahead. And this is the cow trails. You see them? And then they get deeper, deeper, deeper. And then the cedar trees come in, and that's solid cedar trees. Go ahead. Like I said, it was 30 below zero, and this was a terrible spot. And we said, well, let's put steel posts in our panels up and make them stay in there overnight and see what we can do. So we did. This is night one. Guess what? 30 below zero. We couldn't get the post out of the ground. So we came back in second night. Go ahead. And it started changing. Third night, go ahead. And I went, holy cow. We just did what heavy machinery would take to do, and we did it in 3 days in January at 30 below zero. I never knew we could do that. Plus the cedar trees are eaten. So that's loaded with poop. And that's one night, second night, third night, 30 below zero. Now, see the white dog up on the hill? That's Sally that chased down the rich women. The Akbash. Anyway, that blew my mind. But we have learned, so this is 28 years we've been doing this and have learned so much of what you can do. Go ahead. Oh, and the landowner, he came and he said, I think you're grazing this way too hard. This is too hard. And he came out in his pickup and he'd roll the window down that far. Anyway, he sent me a photo on a text in July of the next summer, and the grass was over his four-wheeler. And he said, okay, now I get it. Colorado Springs, the goats are, I've never had a goat hit me. I've never had a goat butt me in 28 years. And they're very respectful, and that's how we make everything behave. If you're on our team, you have to do what we need you to do, and we work in a lot of cities, Bear Creek Park in Colorado Springs. Go ahead. Now, one problem of people say, well, why don't more people know about this? The research is done. When I was at Colorado State University, I was the only one in the department not funded by a chemical company. When the chemical company does the research and funds the research, they give you the question, and the question is, how much should we spray? So then that goes through this, and the experts and the extension, county extension people and the weed guy. The landowner calls in to the weed guy and says, I've got thistle in my hayfield. What should I do? Pulls the research off the shelf and it says, well, you have to spray Toradon, quart to the acre, twice a year, spring and fall. That's not what he asked, but it really gets mixed up, and the chemical companies are brilliant with their marketing. Go ahead. Oh, I got $1,000 a month stipend, and I had to pay my own books, tuition, and fees. And the chemical funded kids got $30,000 cash, plus everything was paid, plus they were wined and dined. They had nice down coats and caps and everything. It was really quite a big difference. So I say it's really simple. The goal, go ahead. Cross the L. Oh, that says goat. Now we have 20 minutes for questions. Everybody want to stand up and stretch and
Oh, I have a lot of questions.
get a drink? That baby is so nice. What's the baby's name?
Peter.
Oh my God, I can't wait till I get
He
to
runs sheep with the dogs already.
We'll give you a business card.
That's higher.
He'll eat it.
Do you guys train your own dogs, or do you have a trainer that comes in and works with you?
Both. We found that if they grow up with us in goat camp, it's the best. We have a pup now that we bred and raised. It was an accidental breeding. We didn't mean to, so we have one female pup now. But over the years, I'm always looking for border collies to buy, because when we have employees, they have to be push button dogs. You know, they don't know anything. And like Zippy, you know, he would run his own herd of 500 head in the city with 2 college girls, and they didn't have any idea. He would just do it. And they think they're doing it, but they're not. The dog knows what to do already. So anyway, I'm always looking, and I'm looking for something that started or a made dog. And what I have found that I really like, but they're hard to find, is a semi-retired trial dog. So the person that does trials, they have a new dog that they're going to win the world with, and the 8-year-old dog goes in a kennel and never comes out. And man, if I can find those, because they're so well trained, and they have 5 good years left in them to work every day. But our dogs work every day, and they're really happy.
But you have to match border collie's personality with the person's personality, you know? They're a lot different than like a blue heeler or something that just is all on go. So, you know, I'll send one of my good dogs with an employer or something, and my dog just, you know, they're not gonna work for them. They'll just sit under the truck and be like, not for that guy.
We have a red dog, Betty, and she really likes me, and if an employee gives her a command, she goes, and Patch, that you saw in there, he would lay down. They'd say something, and he would just lay down. He would eat.
Or they'll get my good dogs will get bad habits because they know they can get away with everything. It's like, you know, trail horses and stuff and dude horses on the ranch, you know, you gotta get them, I gotta go ride them like every 3 weeks to get them back into, you know, not jerking the reins out of their hands, trying to get grass and stuff. Same thing with our border collies, when they go with someone that's too soft on them, I gotta get them back, and not soft, but like they just need tuned up, you know.
So we were in Cheyenne, working in the city of Cheyenne on Crow Creek, and I got a call early in the morning from the Halliday Chevrolet dealership. And he said, "Are you missing 2 dogs?" And I didn't know. I looked down and said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "They're over here." I knew they were your dogs because they're really smart. It's really hot. Oh, what must it not have been early in the morning? It was really hot, and he said, they have a rabbit trapped in the PVC pipe, and the dogs picked up the pipe and moved it to the shade. And then set up one on each.
That's pretty good.
But people, the public, love the dogs the most. And we're in Colorado Springs, the people change their work schedules so they can get down there. They say, "What time are you gonna be moving the goats with the dogs? What time are you gonna work the dogs?" And Grandma and Grandpa bring their grandkids. That little girl in the pink dress, I thought she was so cute.
The people that bring to the urban areas, they'll bring their pets or their dogs to, you know, see the goats, whatever, and they're on a leash, and they, you know, they'll say, "Sit," like, "Sit, Fido, sit, sit," and try to get it to sit, one word with real good pronunciation, you know, and then I'll be like, "Tucker, go bring the goats down to water and bring them over here." You know, like, it's a
And
full
count-
sentence with
and
no
count
like,
'em.
with no like dictation of like sit, and then he'll go get the goats, bring them down to water, and then bring them over here.
It's very fast.
It's like passing conversation, you know. It's how incredibly intelligent those dogs are.
But it's a joy. It's a joy. Oh, Border Collie is pure joy. Everything they do is pure joy, and it reminds me to have joy with everything I do. But I do cuss a lot, I'll tell you. But
And then also with the, like when we have our branding, we call them brandings, we don't brand the goats, but you know, but we'll have all my friends and their kids and stuff over there in the pen grabbing the kids and helping out, you know? So way different than like a cow branding where it's, you know, you can get seriously hurt with cows and stuff. So that's another nice factor of using the goats.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a lot of questions.
Go ahead,
So if
shoot.
I need to go last, I can.
You have 12 minutes.
Okay.
Oh wait, does anybody else have any?
Yeah, seriously.
Or we'll juggle back and
Okay.
forth. Okay.
Yeah,
go.
because so I have goats. I actually just got a grant to do a grazing project on our place because I'm using them for brush and weeds. And
Where's your
everything.
place?
We're out of Tinsley,
Okay.
and we're on the Lower Noad. We run cows. Cows can't get into all the
I've
brush.
worked for Rob Orchard up there.
Okay, yeah,
On
okay,
top,
so you know
yeah.
where we are. So
Yeah.
I'm Kate Brewster, so we're just
Okay.
going around. Anyways, so I have the goats. It's been a learning process. I've had 3 years. I've had really good success with the few areas we've done so far, but I'm finally really getting set up because I wanted to try it before I invested all the money and everything. But, okay, so first of all, what kind of fence do you prefer? Like, do you have a brand, do you have a type? Because I had some of the net and I hated it, and it might have been a different type, but I had kids and lambs get stuck in it and get like choked.
Well, you have to
So-
train them to it. But
Okay.
first of all, do you know who Tom Lassiter is?
I know the name.
That developed the Beefmaster breed?
Yeah, I know the name.
He
yeah.
told me that I was successful because I never got a grant.
Okay. Well, I figured it would help me buy
So-
a fence for this year.
Premier one.
Premier one.
42
Okay.
inch, but it's not the voltage or anything, it's the behavior. You gotta, the
Okay.
behavior is key. You gotta, their behavior is how we do this everywhere we go.
Okay.
Is
It's
behavior.
both. It's a balance.
Yeah, and mine are all pretty gentle and easy to handle because I don't have any facilities, so they have to be.
How many head?
Right now I've got 40.
40.
So
What kind?
mostly boar.
My
have
least
a few
favorite.
dairy goats. I got them because
That's
that's
okay.
what I could
Next-
find.
Yeah.
Next question, I know.
But I'm actually looking at getting some Spanish billies to cross them because I'm not.
Oh, we
a fan
have
of
3.
them so far. Okay, cool.
We have 3 and 4
Don't ever
columns.
go the other way. Don't go Spanish to boar, or you'll have a lot of problems.
Really?
We did that
Okay.
1 year and it was a disaster.
In Nebraska, there was only boars to be had and we bred. Ooh, it's a
Yeah.
terrible idea.
Okay, yeah. Next question is, what sort of soil testing do you do before and after?
The physical data, pH, soil sand, silt sand, what is that mix? The
Clay.
Loam.
The
Sand, silt, clay.
sand, silt, clay. The CEC, those simple physical qualities is very easy and cheap. And then I take a subsample of that and flight it overnight to the soil food web in Oregon and get the living data, the living biota, the living fungi to bacteria, the active fungi bacteria ratio, total and active, and I get that. So to have a healthy grassland when you're healing rangeland or anything, you must have bacteria and fungi ratio 1-to-1. And when you spray any herbicide, I don't care which one it is, you kill the fungi and it goes straight to bacteria.
I've been using Ward Laboratories because they do the Haney test. So,
Ward?
yeah,
In
and that'll give
Nebraska.
you a little bit more information on water infiltration and oxygen.
Okay, so next question is what kind of insurance do you guys have? Cause I've already had a bunch of people around Tinsley wanting me to take my goats to their house, but I'm getting set up for that, that's my goal. I'm not gonna do what you guys do. 'Cause
We
that's-
carry $2 million commercial liability and
Yeah, it's a policy that I have with a Casper firm, but it's really tough to write. I mean, you have to
Okay.
sit down.
you
with
would
them and
never
write.
want, we have never filed a claim, never.
Yeah, cause
And never
I was
planted.
just worried mainly about taking them to somebody's house and then like their dogs killing I mean, I'm small enough, like if they come in and kill 18 of my 40, that's.
Well, so your insurance on the goats is what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we
No,
don't carry
We don't
You don't
carry
have any
insurance.
insurance? Okay.
With goats,
No.
5-month gestation and 190% kid crop, so like, you can double your herd in
Come back pretty
5
quick.
months. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also you don't wanna work for those people. But, the commercial liability that we carry, that we have never claimed and never plan to, if you work for any government agency and, city homeowners, they want that first.
Okay.
And you're not gonna get a job unless you have that. And it's cheap, it's relatively cheap. Now, your turn.
Oh, can I get a business card and maybe consult with you after this? about
Absolutely.
what's on my land?
Yeah, I've got
Absolutely,
plenty of
we've done a
business.
lot of work in Wyoming, and we were at Boyson Reservoir, the crash of 2001 after, we had 2,500 goats and contracts for 18 months out when 9/11 happened in 2001, and I lost every contract I had in a matter of 6 hours. And I came to Boyson Reservoir and worked all winter for $4,000 total from Lars Baker on the, what was the name of that? The wildlife area, and taught college here. Because I didn't think it was time to quit. So we made it through the 01 crash, we made it through the 07, 08 crash, we made it through this last crash. We made it through all of them. And, you know, things changed. That's why we moved to where the jobs are, because when the 2001 worst drought of the century happened and Denver crashed, we came to Wyoming and Montana. And then we go to New Mexico. It's just, then the fires are in California. You know what a mess California's gonna be next year. And the 192 million of fire money in Colorado for prevention this year. You gotta go. I mean, most people wanna stay home, but it's a different business and you can get lazy. We can't. You. No, you.
You guys have to run into other folks with goats at some point in time
Mhm.
while you're out there. How do you guys manage diseases?
Well, we've never wormed, never trimmed a hoof, and we just don't have any problems, any health problems, I think, because they have such a diverse diet. We go everywhere, they have a huge diversity of diet. Somebody that stays home all the time, you only have that food.
But I can't imagine Q Fever
And-
really cares about diet.
I hear about all those things.
Just
It-
curious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we haven't run into
You
anything
don't,
like
We've
we've
that.
never
never
ran
any kind
with
of testing or anything?
But-
We've never
we
ran with
don't-
another herd or anything either.
Yeah, we've never.
Right, but I mean, just sharing a fence line or something with,
Uh-uh.
yeah.
Never
But
even
usually we're
close
not
to
even
them.
that close.
Oh, okay.
to 'em.
No.
Okay, so
That's-
then you just don't ever run into other.
Never yet.
No, I mean, other goats.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll come, but not yet. Now, we run into problems with the bighorn sheep
Right.
scandal. And that depends on who's in charge and what their belief is wherever you are. And that has held us out of a lot of really good work in certain places, but it depends on who's at the job in the government agency, if that's a pet peeve to them. Now, the way I understand it, there's no data either way.
Mhm.
But John Meinzinski, who studied them for 60 years on Whiskey Mountain,
Yep.
says the true threat is from the wild to the tame, not the other way around. And he said the problem with the bighorn sheep here is selenium deficiency from car exhaust. It's
And
causing
it's
that.
sheep to sheep, not goats to sheep, right?
Yeah.
There's no data on goats to sheep, just
Right.
domestic sheep, or, yeah, goats to sheep, domestic sheep, and then you have to have that mucus contact.
Mhm.
So they have to have contact to make it,
Yeah.
to transfer.
So anyway, haven't had that problem yet.
Okay, just curious.
Now, I did lose a job in Idaho on a big, beautiful buffalo ranch to the doctor who invented and developed the artificial knee and the surgery of how to do it. Invented all that, and he had buffalo, and it came down to a buffalo in a feedlot in Twin Falls, Idaho, were downwind from sheep and got catarrhal fever from downwind from sheep. And then he wouldn't hire me because of that fear of the sheep in the downwind. But it's never happened, but that was enough for him. I really wanted to work there, it was beautiful. Okay, who's next? You again?
Okay, yeah.
That's EWE. You again.
So then, I'm guessing you guys don't do any mineral. You do
Yes.
mineral. Okay. So
That's all well,
Trace went on
in storms we'll feed alfalfa
Okay,
in a bad snowstorm or something.
yeah,
But trace mineral is usually the only thing we supplement with.
okay, do you have a special type or brand?
No, but man, is it getting expensive.
Okay, yeah.
And tie wire's getting so
Okay.
expensive.
What about vaccinations?
But we don't do any.
No vaccinations? Okay. How do you reseed?
I like to throw it in the wind.
So you just walk out there and start going?
it. Get the goats over
Yep.
it right after you do it.
I like-
trample it in.
So go
I
right
like the wind
Broadcast.
to be blowing about 20 miles an hour at least. And I throw it, I fan it into the wind because the wind puts everything, drops it
Yeah.
right where it puts the soil and the water drop in the snow.
Okay.
And then you
So-
put the goats on it after you seed it?
Yep, or right at the same
And
time.
they won't eat the seed?
Uh-uh. It's in the ground. And they're, whatever we're eating, you know, you've seen everything we eat. There's no bare dirt where we wouldn't hold them there.
So when you're kidding out, do you just, cause this is kinda all my goal is to get to this stage. I'm not there yet with my goats and I can't, like, I'm still having to babysit them because I got too much money into them.
You need to come to our school or go to Kelly Foundation. We started last year to teach people who are serious about wanting to run a business,
Yeah.
professional business.
So when you kid out, do you just walking through checking, just making sure nobody's having problems, but that's about it, pretty much? Or not even that?
It just depends.
Yeah, I mean, that Kiko breed that we run, you know, are
Okay.
really, really good mothers. I mean,
Yeah.
they're great, and rarely do we have problems, but we of course keep an eye on them, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Do you sell any to the commercial market after, when you just have too many, or?
Oh,
you never
fence
do?
crawlers,
Yeah, fence.
barbecue,
Okay.
barbecue, and you are gone.
Okay, yeah,
No second.
yeah.
So how many goats do you have?
Right now, we're running about 1,200. We stay between 1,000 and 2,500. I'm 65, so now I'm getting old. I can't, on crutches.
Okay, when you do the reseeding, is that something where
They buy the
So-
seed.
they buy the?
They buy the seed, and I tell them, give all this data, elevation, aspect, precipitation, past use, what you want, call the seed company, tell them everything you can tell them, have them give you a list of 10 legumes or 10 grasses that would do well in this setting, then you pick whatever. And then usually, and this is really dumb of us, usually we put it out, they buy it and we put it out. Now, sometimes, have we ever had somebody else seed, or do we always do it? I think we always do.
What was the question back there?
Peter wants to know?
Yeah, he does,
Something?
but his secretary's failing at the moment.
Oh, there's one
Did you have a question?
Go ahead.
Another?
back here.
So my question was this, you mentioned that you only run weathers and nannies out there. When are you breeding?
Well, we haven't bred yet this year because the weather's been too wacko. And we have our 3 Spanish Billies at Fort Collins on 80 acres, and we've never put them in yet because it just hasn't worked. But We breed when we know what job we're gonna be on 5 months later, where we can do it, and hopefully sit still for 30 days until they get trained to the fence, trained to the dog, and up and running really good, and then we can load and go.
We used to breed so that we'd kid in like January when we're like, you know, not so busy, but it's hard. It's obviously hard to kid in January. So
Yes.
then we changed to like June, and we would just take like, you know, a different job, but that we'd be there for, because you want at least, you know, 3 weeks for those kids to get up and get going. And we'll do like a 2-week kidding window, and that's it. We'll put the billies in 2 weeks, take them out, and then we know in 5 months we'll have some outliers. But pretty much those 2 weeks we'll be very busy, and then give them 2 weeks before we haul them the first time.
And your 3 billies are covering all those goats?
Well, we never breed them all.
Yeah, we don't.
Oh, okay.
Now, the best I ever did, you know, people sort, manage, micromanage, sort. One year was in Fort Collins, I had 1,450 goats, and I put 2 billies on the whole herd. Weathers, everybody. Sometimes the weathers will fight off the billies, the big weathers. And the big weathers are my favorite by far. I love those guys. But anyway, I put 2 billies in for exactly 2 weeks. Took them out. We were in the winter 90 miles southwest of Boise, Idaho, on the Owyhee Desert when I kidded. They kidded exactly 2 weeks to the minute. Exactly, that exact window, 2 weeks. I had 100% live birth and never lost any. They bred the best nannies in the best shape in that 1,450 herd, and I think that's, in my opinion, the best way to do it. But now we sort, and if we do anything this year, we'll sort off 100 and then put the billies in, and then they'll go on separate small jobs the whole year.
Okay.
You see herd quitters, and if you do, what do you do with them?
We'll do what?
Herd quitters?
The goats?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, I see it when it's a similar situation that you're talking about with the kids, where they'll stash babies, and then you go to move everybody and they run back. But they start doing it even when their babies are with them. They just say, oh yeah, I did this before, we'll just quit and let everybody else go on. You see that?
Do you have a good dog?
Well, not as good as yours.
See, don't argue.
Yeah.
We have a soils question for you, Caitlin.
I'll give it a shot.
Donnie, shoot.
Forgot the question.
I always say, I don't remember where I learned it, that the soil microbes are most active in the winter.
That I have never heard. Most microbes, most of the soil microbes are aerobes, they go into air, and like most other microbes, moderate temperatures, right? More active when they have right amount of moisture and a moderate temperature, so less active when it's extremely hot or extremely cold. That's my understanding.
I'm gonna have to find where I
But I would
learned.
like to read that, because
Yeah.
of course, there's lots of different kinds of microbes, right, and there's different
Yep.
conditions.
And I wouldn't make that up.
Yeah, no, I believe it. So I would be curious to see that.
Okay.
My understanding is they're most active
I'll
on
look-
temperature.
I'll Thank you, everybody, for your attention. For an hour and a half.
I just want to say I also graduated from